Chapter 40. And you aren't going to be the male lead. I'll choose see an ending with so don't you worry. Male lead I'll choose see an ending with so don't you worry. I once again told him to take his mind off this matter. So you don't need to mind my business, Reynald. I'll take care of my business myself. Just take your time. Just take your mind off my things. Insult me or whatever and leave. I have to take a shower. Can you leave now? I said, glimpsing at the room door. Reynald frowned. I was surprised because it was an expression I've never seen in the game before. And at the same time, my heart dropped in a sudden thought that was brought up in my mind. Wait, is the interest level going to drop lower now? No, I didn't act like how Penelope did in front of Reynald. Instead, carefully chose the words he would accept. But why? It was. Then, the empty gauge bar above Reynolds' lovely pink hair started to sparkle. Interest 3%. What the? My mind went blank. Why did it just rise? It rose 6% at that. I was dumbfounded as I kept looking back and forth at the gauge bar and Reynald. It was then when Reynald opened his mouth and muttered, I'm the idiot here to show consideration for you, even for a short moment. The blue eyes that glared at me seemed to hold heavy sadness. He walked towards the door after finishing his sentence. I was probably seeing things. I decided that it was me seeing things while watching him leave the room. Thud, the door slammed shut and silence followed soon after that. I supported myself, leaning an elbow on the table, and started to think. Something felt weird. It was not bad, seeing the characters whom I thought I had no hopes in. Interest rate rising with my own two eyes. Are my lines better now with the choices turned off? Since not all of the interest rate of the brothers who hates me dropped to a negative, I should keep it off all the time. I stood up from the spot after deciding on that. It wasn't a lie when told Reynold that I had to shower. While pulling on a string that signals the maids to come up, a thought went through my head that I couldn't call Reynold a negative anymore. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The timeout that seemed as if it would last forever stopped sooner than I thought it would. An invitation from the palace. Yes, lady. The eldest young master told me to tell the lady to prepare for it. The eldest young. No, the eldest brother did. I stopped myself from calling him the eldest young master like how the workers here calls him, and reminded myself to call him the eldest brother in front of them. I was this family's daughter, the youngest member after all. Anyways, to think Derek actually told me to do so. He didn't tell me directly, but this meant the end of my time out. This is the invitation, lady. Emily handed me the invitation in mannered way. The name Penelope was written in the paper that had the golden dragon that was the symbol of the royals drawn on it. The second prince's birthday ceremony. It was tomorrow. I should hurry and prepare for it. Even while muttering that, I still didn't feel so glad that my time out was over. The days were so nice during the time out without having to face the two brothers and being served well by Emily. Basing on the game plot, Derek, Reynolds, and I would continue to intervene with each other's business. Wait, I was thinking about the events that will occur in the future when a sudden thought interrupted. If I'm going to the palace, then I might see the crown prince. No, not even might. It's certain there wasn't a scene that showed Penelope going to the palace, but I was sure about the fact that I'll be meeting the crown prince because it was the first episode of the Crown Prince route. I subconsciously screamed as I remembered the illustration where the Crown Prince sliced Penelope's neck multiple times. No, lady, Emily looked back at me in surprise. I must not go. Should I just say that I'm sick so I can't go? That was the only choice left if I were to avoid that crazy brat. I panicked as I asked Emily, who looked down, probably thinking if she did anything wrong. Emily, is father also attending the ceremony tomorrow? His grace is busy with work tomorrow, so the first young master is escorting the lady there. Shoot. End of chapter 11. Chapter 12. I felt depressed. If I didn't want to go to the ceremony, then I'll have to talk to not the Duke but Derek. But if I do, then there's a risk of his interest rate decreasing. I would have tried gambling if it was Reynolds instead. I let out a sigh, thinking back to Reynolds' interest rate that just rose from a negative. I was busy enough already even trying to keep it at 0%. I shouldn't even think to take risks by gambling against Derek. Lady, are you okay? You've turned pale. Emily cautiously asked, glimpsing at my serious facial expression. Leave the room. I have something to think about. I gestured with my hand, sounding annoyed. I let out a sigh as soon as she left the room. Huh, I'll die when I don't go, and I'll die when I do go. How insane is this game? I started to miss my heavenly days during my time out. It will be fine if I avoid him the best I can, right? I thought back to how the story flowed, but there were nothing much to remember. Meet the crown prince at the maze in the palace garden, then die before a proper conversation starts. Again and again. I'm not exaggerating when I say I had to press the reset button every 5 seconds. I think just not attending saying I'm sick would be the best. It was then when a smart idea popped up in my mind. Should I try dying? It isn't a bad idea when you think about it. I mean, no one knows. I might be able to go back to my world if I die in this world. What is the system going to do about it when the player reached the game over? Giving up fast would be better than trying to reach the ending of the game with one of the characters who I have no hopes in. Also, this game has the reset button. It even sounds angelic. Reset button. Of course, there aren't back button or other icons visible, even though it did on the phone screen when playing the game. The only thing I could see at the moment is the square chart with the choices. But wouldn't a reset button exist when choices on or off system exists? Why didn't I think of this before? As long as there's a reset button, it's best as if I take everything face to face. Awesome. Let's see the crown prince and die. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. I was half dead from walking up earlier than usual and getting all the treatments. I took a bath in a tub of water mixed with milk and fragrance extract, then got some massages, and did both a face and body mask. These boring steps were repeated multiple times. I was half dead when I got out the bathroom and was sitting at the makeup table. However, that wasn't all. Lady, how is this dress? This was bought last time and weren't worn once, so it's new. How about this earring? This should go well with the dress. I think tying half of your hair would be better than tying them all up. What do you think? How do you want your makeup? They kept on asking, holding me down. Do they actually hate Penelope? They were more excited than I was than I was. I raised my head and looked in the mirror. It seemed like all the treatments I got this morning did their work because my face was glowing even more than usual. Well, it surely would be fun to decorate a face like this. I nodded, understanding why they react this way, and spoke. Take that dress back and bring the one that covers all my neck. I'll wear the least amount of accessories. I should wear and take it easy on all the others too. Eh? The maids jumped in shock from my words, then added, But lady, it's a party. The one at the royal palace at that. The words also seemed to ask, won't you need to dress up the prettier than others? The reddish pink dress that would widely make my neckline visible that the maids brought surely would go well with Penelope's crimson pink hair, and the accessories that looked like it was a set with the dress would complement Penelope's splendid beauty. But I wasn't going to the palace to show off the beauty like a peacock would. But then I couldn't possibly say that I was going there to die, so I just bubbled things out like how Penelope would. You don't need to try too hard, just do as I say. The maids couldn't convince me longer after hearing my cool tone of voice as they walked towards the dress room with a saddened face. The three dresses that the maids later brought were all decorated calm unlike the last dress. This one, the dress I picked, was the dark green evening dress. It covered my collarbones, and it was the color of dark green, which didn't pop out much. I wore the dress and forced the maids into do into doing my makeup as lightly as possible. I wore small emerald-colored earrings that resembled Penelope's eyes, and called it at that. After the makeover, I looked in the mirror and saw a girl so virtuous that I thought I was going to the church to pray instead of going to a fancy party. This would be enough to be almost unseen. Unlike me, whose face was bright with satisfaction, the maid's expression were all dark. Only Emily stay, and the rest can leave now. I ordered them to leave. Then I asked for one more thing from my personal maid. Emily, could you prepare the gloves that are the same color of the dress? Lady, you're going to wear the gloves as well. If I do, then it would be perfect. Emily fidgeted as if she wanted to stop me from that also. Then what? I can't go showing this to everyone. I said, showing the needle marks on my hand. The needle marks were faint, and it was now hardly visible. However, there could always be some nobles with keen eyesight to notice this. Emily's face went pale as soon as I showed her. Hurry and bring it. Oh, okay. I clicked my tongue, watching her leave in panic. There were moments where she became a little hesitant after treating her a little well these days. There were needs to make her feel nervous when facing me. Later, the preparation was done, with me putting on my gloves. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Derek scanned me from my head to my toe and made a face seeming to say, "This is rare. It seems like you've turned more human-like these past days of your time out." It was our first meeting each other's in days, but his attitude on Penelope still stayed the same. However, I didn't have time to get upset about it. It was because of the shining gauge bar over his head, interest 5%. What the? When did it go up? His interest on me has risen without me even knowing it. 5% at that. I was a little dumbfounded. If his interest towards me rises when he didn't see me, just how much does he hate Penelope? If I knew about this earlier, then I would have spoken to him about not going from being sick. I started to regret my decision, but it was too late. The fancy carriage with the symbol of Eckert on it was standing in front of the main entrance. I bowed slightly as a greeting, then reached my hand out to the bodyguard standing nearby. It was because the courage was higher than I thought. I couldn't see what Derek was doing since I was busy with lifting my dress up to get on the courage. It was when I successfully got up the courage and turned around to look at Derek. He had his hand stretched forward, looking at me with a stiff face. What's up with him? I tilted my head in confusion of what he was doing, but we needed to hurry up and start going if we want to be at the ceremony on time. There was no way he'd ride the same carriage as the carriage I was on, so I waited for the carriage door to close. But then, Derek, who was frozen in place, got in the carriage. What's happening? Why is he climbing up in here? I searched through my memories to see if I've done anything wrong. However, nothing came up into my mind. It was obvious because we met today just now and only just said hello. While I was doing that, Derek sat down on the seat on the opposite side of where I was sitting. You're riding with me? His brows creased from my questioning. You have a problem with that? No, no, it's not that. What's wrong with you? You've never done anything like this before. I shook my head, making sure I didn't say that out loud. But even though I said that, his crease didn't leave his face. If you have a problem, you ride the other carriage, he said with a cold tone. I glimpsed out the carriage window, actually considering to do as he suggested. However, He already closed the carriage door while he was coming in, so it would look funny if I opened it again and left. I don't dislike it. I looked back at Derek and forced the half-hearted words out of me. I like it. And then I carefully glimpsed at Derek to see his reaction. He who glared at me for a moment turned his head to the side. I mean, if you dislike this that much, why are you making it awkward and uncomfortable for both of us? Is this a new way to annoy Penelope? I was dumbfounded at his figure letting out all the cold aura. But that soon changed when I took a look above his head. Interest 6%. It went up by 1%. I was staring at it wide eyed when the carriage started moving. Yeah, what could possibly happen in the carriage? I had the whole 6% interest with me. There wouldn't possibly be a case that will make this 6% drop in such a short time in the courage. Remembering the words, if you can't avoid it, enjoy it, I decided to take it in as a good thing. However, soon after departing, I regretted riding the same courage with Derek. It's suffocating. Save me. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. It seemed like eternity until we finally arrived at the palace. It was only a moment of time where could just watch the cold, handsome man sitting with his arms and legs crossed. In the silent courage existed only silence, which made me super self conscious to even breathe properly. I decided to try opening the window when I couldn't take it anymore, but Derek stared at me as soon as I started to move, so I couldn't do a thing. When I flinched even just a little after that, he would open his closed eyes abruptly and glare at me. Ah, why are you looking at me like that? I sweated, glimpsing at the interest 6% once a while. I shouted in delight mentally when the carriage stopped at the palace. I could finally escape this carriage of death. I'll hurry and get out, then take in some fresh air. Click. But before that happened, Derek got up so suddenly as soon as the carriage stopped. After he would open the door before me and get out, then take it. End of chapter 12. Chapter 13. Derek reached one hand out to me, who got up with my dress held up with my hands. Did you eat something weird? I blankly stared at Derek, who was trying to escort me with wide eyes. After a while, he frowned. What are you doing? Aren't you going to get down? I came back to my senses and looked around me. The gazes of the nobles, who also just arrived, were all looking this way. Thank you. I hurriedly took Derek's hand and got off the carriage. With my hand on his, we walked up the stairs to the ballroom, entering young Master Derek Eckert and Gungyu, Penelope Eckert from the Eckert family. It was around when the giant door to the ballroom opened, following the loud shout of the servant. Don't be rushed. Derek's cold words reached my ears. You didn't forget that your time out has just ended yesterday, have you? Speechless. If you make a fuss again, then it won't end just with some time out. My feelings of excitement disappeared from his words. I wanted to talk back to Derek's displeasing words, but I held it back. Okay, I'll be careful. I put my effort in making a smile while I spoke. After my reply, Derek turned his face away from me. I pouted at the time he wasn't looking. The party held at the palace went by really smooth. In other words, it was very boring. Right after we entered, Derek left my side and was now busy greeting other people. Compared to that, there were no one coming to talk to me. It seemed like the rumors of me making a fuss did a great effect. I looked around to see the noble ladies of Penelope's age dancing and whispering as a group. I watched the scene in a corner where not much people passed by. I'm not lonely. This is definitely not brainwashing. Really, I had a clear reason why I came here, and I might be able to escape this horrible place if I succeed. Ugh, just when is that damn crown prince coming? More people were glimpsing and gossiping about me as time passed. It was when I thought I reached the limit of taking in all the stairs, entering Her Majesty the Empress and His Highness the Second Prince. It was finally the start of the actual event that happens in this chapter of the game. The nobles who were giggling and talking all the either bowed, kneeled to the ground, facing the entrance. I also bowed, following what all the others were doing. The Empress and the Second Prince did power walking in a confident pose down the red carpet, and it seemed like they were saying, "We are the royals." The golden hair, which was the symbolism of the royals, shined under the bright light of the ballroom. They walked across the ballroom to the stairs, then walked up the stairs were the seats where only the royals had the right to sit. I, who was watching the whole scene, was surprised at the sight of the second prince sitting on one chair. Isn't that the seat for the crown prince? The seat the second prince sat on was the seat in the middle, which was located higher up than the other chairs. The golden throne with the fancy golden dragon decoration. It was the seat of the for the emperor. However, the emperor almost never showed up in the game, so normally the crown prince would sit on it instead. But why is it the second prince? I was dumbfounded with the Empress and the second prince being so calm when they did something like that. It was as if it was totally a normal thing to happen in the first place. Is it allowed because it's the second prince's birthday? Everyone may rise. The second prince, who sat on the seat, commanded. The people rose up as commanded. I thank you all for attending to my birthday ceremony, even when I'm sure everyone must be busy. There's not much prepared for today, but I hope everyone to have a great time. With the second prince speech finished, the party officially begun. No, it was going to be until thud. A loud noise came from the entrance all of a sudden. What's happening? The nobles all turned to face where the noise came from and started to clatter. The chatter. A figure walked through the crowd into the ballroom. Step, step. The sound of the footsteps could be heard. At the same time, the sound of something being dragged was also heard. I, it's the crown prince. Someone shouted. I hurriedly turned to look at that shout. Elegant blonde hair that seemed like it was made with real gold swayed in the air. The shining golden hair of the empress and the second prince was now seemed to be a joke. Excuse me. The blonde golden haired man with a red cape fluttering behind was the one who really was shining to the eyes. Isn't that a person? That's people who stood close to the crown prince started to scream. Drug. I didn't realize from being distracted by the crowned prince appearance that something he dragged in here with him was a person with absolutely no movements. Happy birthday, dear brother. The crown prince who reached the stairs tossed the person in his hand. Brother, crown prince. The empress got up from the spot and pointed at the crown prince. What disgraceful thing are you doing? How is a big brother attending his little brother's birthday ceremony a disgraceful thing to do, mother? You're a crown prince. And yet you do this horrible thing at a place where you're not even invited. The Empress' face ignited bright red and trembled, not allowing herself to speak about a person who was dragged in here. What do you mean, I wasn't invited? Those words are saddening. Who are you to come to a place like this? It's because I was invited that I set aside all my duties to come running here. The Crown Prince shrugged sarcastically. He didn't look sad at all, judging by his face. I couldn't understand the situation of the two. Is the Empress not the Crown Prince's birth mother? While I was thinking that, the Crown Prince added, but the servant who brought the invitation was too immature. The Crown Prince then bent down low and got up as he forcefully pulled the drugged body by the hair so that he was halfway standing. His face wasn't shown due to the black mask. However, seeming from the dark and fitting clothes he was wearing, he seemed like a murderer. He'd not give me the invitation I told him to give, but do other things instead, so I taught him a little lesson. Speechless. Why didn't you pick more proper servant, little brother? It was then, Sir, the crown prince used his free hand to slide his sword out the right way then right away sliced the neck of the murderer. Splatter, blood started to spurt out like a water fountain. I'll replace my gift to you with this. The crown prince tossed the head of the to the second prince's foot. Ugh! The ballroom was filled with the loud scream of the empress. The head of the person's that what the head of a person's what was rolling like a ball on the floor. The second prince's face was pale as if he was going to faint any moment and couldn't speak a word. Send the servant like him again with the invitation if you want a gift from me again. The ballroom filled with shocked people. Only the crown prince smiled within all those people. His keen and sharp smile resembled the lion from the hell. He left the room as quickly as he did when he entered the ballroom, only leaving us with the shock and fear. The crown prince was completely out of sight when the people letting out their breaths that they were holding back until now could be heard. It was the same for me. What? I shuffled through my memories, grabbing into my chest. Something like this really never happened in the game. No matter how much I thought back about the game, this kind of huge incident never once happened. It was too huge for it to be not mentioned in the game, like about the needle marks on Penelope. The crown prince, who was not in a great relationship with his brother, the second prince, leaves the ballroom, displeased with the small incident. This was all that was mentioned. How is this a small incident, you crazy game? I panicked mentally, looking at the servants cleaning up the blood and the corpse. It was then, when the white box popped into view. System. The episode The Crown Prince with the Iron Blood Callisto Regulus has begun. Would you like to go to the maze garden? Yes or no? I thought about it for a while. The Crown Prince I saw was far crazier than how I imagined him to be, which made me doubt a little. I think I'd get sliced the second we meet. However, the fear for death is only a second long. I came here to die anyway. If I endure it once this time, then I might be able to go back. And I also had an insurance with me called Reset. If I really do die and not go back, then I can always click the reset button. Thinking that, I calmed down my trembling hand and pressed on yes. Then everywhere around me turned white. The moment I opened my eyes again, I was standing at the entrance of the maze garden. This is useful. I was actually quite worried because I tend to get lost often, but I didn't know it had the teleporting system just like the game. Now let's march to death. I stepped in the maze garden already prepared. Thankfully, I didn't get lost at all in the maze. Maybe it's the system being mannered because the lights only lit up on the path I should be taking. I walked through the big maze for a while, following the lights. How much longer? I've walked for quite a long time, but the lights didn't seem like it was going to turn off somewhere. But when my foot was starting to hurt from wearing the high heels, a light on the far distance from me that was sparkling more than the other lights were could be seen. It was finally the end. I reached that end, then took a turn. The place was very spacious, with a small water fountain with a bench you could sit and rest on. What the? Where is he? Looking around me, I could see no other lights that were on. I was pretty sure that this was the end of the maze. However, no matter how much I looked around me, there were no hints of the crown prince. I tilted my head, then hesitantly walked towards the water fountain. Then, through, I felt something cold and heavy by my neck. Gasp! I wondered what mouse it was that was wandering places. The crown prince walked towards me, his sword circling my neck. Sting, with the sensation of my flesh being sliced. Something had dripped down, but I wasn't able to realize that I've been cut. Huh, isn't this the Eckert's crazy fussmaker dog? Brilliant golden hair with the moonlight reflected on it, and the crimson red eyes that seemed to be soaked in blood. The crown prince, who was staring at me in interest, smiled with a ghostly expression. However, that only lasted a moment. To think you'd come and follow after witnessing the scene at the ballroom seems like you have a death wish. I felt goosebumps from the crown prince's expression, suddenly turning emotionless. Speak, why did you follow me like a sneaky mouse would? The sword dug deeper into my skin, but what felt more stinging was the deathly aura directed at me. Then I realized that the Crown Prince is going to kill me right now. Reset button. I wandered around with my eyes, trying to find the reset button. Though I'm going to die anyway, it would be nice if I knew where it was before I die. Judging from you having no answer to my question, shall you start your last farewell to your brothers? However, wherever I looked, it'll be nice and I'll be nice and deliver them the Eckarts, your last words. The reset button was not seen anywhere. Reset. Where's the reset? Reset. End of chapter 13. Chapter 14. There's no reset button. I felt like I was about to faint. The reset button wasn't at anywhere I looked. Meanwhile, the crown prince seemed like he was actually planning to kill me because he raised his sword up. Wait! I shouted in panic. Then the crown prince spoke, tilting his head. Looks like now you have the mindset to speak. That's right, I'll tell. I will tell you. I nodded my head crazily. The sword he has lifted up was one now once again was set by my neck. Go on. Well, I did say that I would tell him because I was panicking, but my mind went blank now that I was going to tell him. I mean, what do I say really? I cannot say I followed because I intended to die, and I shouldn't die as long as I knew that the reset button didn't exist. Should I turn to the choices? However, it wasn't guaranteed that I could live even if I do turn it on. It was actually because it was not on that I survived until now. I can hear your brain rolling to come up with something from here. It was then when the crown prince smirked coldly, not being able to wait a moment for of me, crazily trying to come up with something. I'm very excited of what you'll say. The interest gauge that bat shined dangerously over the top of his head. It will have to be a reasonable excuse, Gong. Speechless, I really dislike someone blocking my way in the middle of anything. He muttered, bringing the sword to my skin with a little more pressure than before. Warm blood streamed down my neck. Fear of death and pain that took control of my brain. I like you. Therefore, without thinking anything more anymore, I spit out the words that even I found was stupid. What? His crimson eyes widened. I shut my eyes closed tight and shouted. My mouth was already out of control. I've been liking you the whole time. Speechless. I thought I could comfort you from the previous incident because I thought you would be hurt by it. This was a total idiotic dialogue, but that didn't appear in either the hard or the normal mode. It was true that in the normal mode, the heroine faces the crown prince and comforts him, but that was only possible because the heroine didn't witness the scene where he sliced the murderer's neck off. Shit. Even though I didn't know what to say, why did I have to answer? Even though I didn't know what to say, why did I have to say that I lacked this insane brat? But if you think about it, there could only be one reason why a noble lady would follow a man into this kind of creepy maze. Is what you could say if it's a talk between a normal man and the women. Bye, you crazy game. I'm possibly going back home because I'm going to die now. It will be a one-star review with me curing it. I closed my eyes and trembled, prepared to feel the pain that'll come down on me soon. But no matter how much I've waited, the sound of a sword slicing through the air couldn't be heard. A Duke family's crazy dog in love with the royal family's wretch. Huh. The night breeze tickled my nose bridge. I carefully opened my eyes, listening to the low mutter of a crown prince. That is, speechless, such an unexpected excuse. The blood like red ice was right in front of my eyes. I was not breathing since I didn't know when. He stared at me with his face filled with interest. You probably didn't see me that lot, though. You probably just took a glimpse at me for the first time at my safe return ceremony. Actually, I didn't see him then either. I only saw him today for the first time in my life. It was obvious since it was after that ceremony that I reincarnated into this body. I replied, my body tense. I fell in love at first sight that day. What part of me do you like? Well, I was speechless for good this time. What could I say? No, how could I? I remember drawing X several times by his name when I reorganized the novel last time. I glimpsed at him and forced a reason out my brain before he loses his cool. Your facials make you very attractive. To think my only charm is my face, this is making me sad. You are very brave and is very skilled with your sword. Your reasons are just things that could come out inside any box. Do you not have more original and interesting reasons? That's well, I was now about to faint from all the replies and questions I was getting. To be honest, I was barely able to stand up right now with my shaky legs. The cold and keen sensation on my neck scared me very much. Oh, the Grand Prince's smirk grew bigger and bigger each time I tried harder to hold back my tears. I was crazy for a moment there. It was crazy for me to try and die from this kind of horrible grip. It was right when I was about to faint backwards. All right, though I'm not so satisfied, I'll let you free for today. The blade of a sword that was digging into my skin was removed with those swords. I raised my head in surprise when the Crown Prince spoke in a voice filled with excitement, his crimson eyes glowing. However, you'll have to explain specifically why and how you came to like me the next time we meet. I nodded my head like an insane person. Go and leave now, sir. He spoke while sliding his sword in his sheath. At that moment, the interest gauge located above the brilliant golden hair started to shine. Then, interest, 2%. I stared at it for a moment, dumbfounded, not because I was happy and relieved, but because it was very, very ridiculous. What are you standing there for? Looks like you want to play draw the red line game again. The crown prince spoke while looking at me stupidly, standing, his thumb motioning a slice on his neck. No, not at all. I jumped on the spot, then drew back. I turned around completely and started fast walking just when it seemed like I've arrived at the entrance of the maze by back stepping. At that moment, I couldn't think of giving a proper farewell greeting to a royal like how I should. Walking fast and not running when I could feel the crown prince gaze on my back was the best manner I could provide. I started to run like crazy just when I turned to a corner. The cold air grazed past me, stinging my cut neck. But I was too busy in my head to even feel the pain. There's no reset button. It was that fact that scared me the most just before the Crown Prince was going to slice my neck. The fact that my insurance I've trusted up until now doesn't exist. Note, the reset button seems to appear a few moments before she dies so that she could tell if it exists or not when she is about to die. It meant that I cannot die like how I wanted to. What if it's really the end when I die? What if I don't go back to where I came from, but really just die? I was just a normal female student. I didn't have the biggest guts to deal with this kind of dangers. The only choice left for me now was to reach the ending with one of the characters. But how? Just how could I endure and reach an ending with one of the characters who tries to kill me the moment I make even the smallest mistake? The fact that all the male characters' interest went up wasn't important to me. That kind of thing, even though you try hard to raise them up, they'll always drop in one go, like a sandcastle would. What if I work my butt off trying to raise their interest on me, but it all just drops in a go, like it did in the game? Then it's death. But I didn't want to die. Why should I? When I survived, risking my life trying to escape from my blood related brothers, why do I have to die that ridiculously in a crazy universe like this when all I do is curry favor with the bastards I don't even know? Hmm. mm. Tears fell from my eyes, and the sound came along with the huffing, but it was all out of my control. Thanks to me running all the way back, by following the lights, I found myself back at the entrance of the maze garden faster than I reached the center of the maze. I was only a few steps away from actually exiting the garden for good. Bump. I bumped into a person in front of me who I couldn't see from the dark. Ah, me who wasn't mentally stable at all felt immense fear rushing over me from the thought that the crown prince may have chased my back. I was going to start running again when my wrist was grabbed. Let's go. I screamed, let go. I screamed, scared for life. Let's go, let go of this, lady. Why do I have to die? I don't want to die. Lady. I, who was shaking the hand I was caught, came back to my senses at the sensation of someone grabbing tightly onto my shoulders. Are you okay? The ultramarine blue eyes that were wide with surprise came into view. Then I saw the silver hair shining under the faint light. Then I came to see the shining interest 0% above it all. Ah, hun. Shh, calm down. I am not going to hurt you. I gasped from crying when the guy spoke with a pleasing voice, making me stiff. Is it one of the main character again? I felt despair when I realized who it was that I bumped into. Winter Verdandi. He was a sorcerer and the Marquis. I'm fine now. I calmed down quickly, just from the fact that it wasn't the Crown Prince. I raised my hand up shakily up to my eyes and wiped the tears down. I wanted to go back home. I didn't want to be here at this place even for a second longer. Adding to that, I didn't have any mentality left in me to face winter and either. I've caused a trouble to a person I've never met before. Please forget what happened right now. Then I spat the words out after roughly wiping my face. I bowed as a greeting, then tried to tried to walk past him. But then I was stopped again. You're bleeding a lot, he said, pointing at my neck. You're also so pale. I'll take you to the doctor here. It's fine. I need to hurry back somewhere. Then at least take this. Unlike me, who didn't want to deal with this right now any longer, Winter didn't let me go, but took something out his breast pocket and handed it to me instead. Lay this over your wound and press on it. It will stop the bleeding. It was a white handkerchief. I stared at it for a moment before accepting it. I couldn't walk back into the ballroom when I was bleeding like this anyway. I bowed once again and opened my mouth to speak. Thank you. I will be sure to return the favor. There is no need for that, he rejected as he reached his hand out towards me. Then, instead, I wish for the sadness to be gone in these beautiful eyes the next time we meet. The warm hands were so close to touching the areas around my eyes that I could faintly feel the heat. Interest, 9%. I was all too focused on the letters shining above his head that I couldn't check to see how he was looking at me. End of chapter 14. Chapter 15. I've actually stopped bleeding by the time I arrived at the door to the ballroom, the handkerchief pressed against my neck. No one knew it if Winter secretly casted magic on it, knowing that he was a sorcerer. I flinched to stop when I was about to enter the ballroom to check on myself. I didn't know wearing a dress with such dull color would be this much of a help today. The blood stain on the dress I was wearing were hardly visible due to its dark color. Thanks to that, I only had to give my hair a little touch before I went in. Finding Derek was very easy. Our Mr. Capture target with cold aura was shining alone out of all the people surrounding him. He told me to just stay quiet and not make a fuss. He'd be mad if he saw my neck cut. I was too focused on thinking back to the warning Derek gave me when we arrived at the royal grounds that I didn't notice the gazes of the people all looking at me. Didn't notice that I wasn't fine just because my dress was fine. Brother, I called him out quietly. Fortunately, he heard this quiet call that was close to a whisper from all the way in the crowd because he turned to look at me right after. I think I'll be leaving now. I'm not feeling too well. Derek's blue eyes widened when he spotted his pale little sister who looked like she was about to faint with a blood soaked handkerchief pressed against her neck. Right now, everything turned black that moment in an instant. The last thing I saw was Derek running towards me with a pale face as I fell unconscious. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. I didn't remember anything after I fainted at the ball. Lady, quick, hurry and bring a doctor. Urgent shouting and rushed footsteps could be faintly heard. The fact that I was lying in bed for days, suffering just from a small cut on my neck, made me laugh. It was as if all the stress I've ignored due to the fact that I was busy trying to survive exploded all at once there. I've dreamt of lots of things during those days. I thought I was going to dream about Penelope's past now that I've become her, but it was all my past that I've dreamed of. It was not too long since the day I entered a high school, which only the rich families' kids goes to. After I was taken into that house, I was packing my things up after class when someone tapped on my shoulder. Hey, your brother is searching for you. He told you to come to the gym storage room. He was one of the kids who favored the second bastard, who basically had the central power and controlled the school. I headed to the storage room without thinking much about it. I did notice that the second bastard was sort of involved with bullying in school, but it wasn't that serious to be thinking about. Brother, I carefully stepped into the storage room, quietly opening the door. I couldn't see anything from the dark, then something was abruptly put over my head when I was wandering in the place. It seemed like a plastic bag. Well, what? Ugh. Me, whose face was covered, was thrown deeper into the storage room, then was beaten up badly, tens of foot kicking and stepping on me. I didn't have a second to recover consciousness. All I could do at the moment was screaming from all the abuses coming at me while cowering. Wow, now this is refreshing. Where did this beggar thing even come from? She's not in the level to be attending the same school we go to. Hey, but aren't we in big trouble if her brothers know? Nonsense. Her brother hates her to death. I followed my father to a meeting and she was brought up in their conversation. Their brothers just shivered in disgust. They grinned and said those trashy words while watching me trying to get back to my senses with the energy I'll have left. Those words hurt more than their actions on me just a moment ago. Hey, from now on, make sure you don't come into our view, and don't say a word about today. With that said, I heard the footsteps of people leaving out the storage room. I was lying there on the floor, completely still for at least 1 hour after that. It was because I was in so much pain that I couldn't even move. It was long after that when I could barely stand up again. I took the plastic bag off my head and saw both my bag and my uniform ruined. I headed to the washroom and started wiping all the footprints on my uniform until I realized that it wasn't the uniform I should be worrying about. In the mirror, I saw blue on my eyes. From that, I could know that I was kicked not only my body, but my face as well. A laugh escaped my mouth at the sight of me, seeming to say I've been beaten. I didn't remember the feeling of when I was being kicked at, because I was out of my senses and because my mind was blank then. I trudged my way to that hell-like house. I hated the house so much that I'd rather die than to go in. But there were no place to go to other than that house. I was unfortunate when I entered the house. There had to be my stepdad and my two stepbrothers all having a little snack time in the living room at the time when I did. I'm back. Since I wasn't someone who could join them, I hurriedly bowed to greet them and hastily headed to the stairs. Wait, stop there. Usually they wouldn't care if I came back or didn't, but that day had to continue to be a bad day because the second bastard called me out. Hey, I told you to stop. I ignored him and continued walking. The second bastard got up from the spot when I did. I was grabbed by the wrist before being able to reach the stairs. Hey, what's all this? Why do you look like that? Nothing much. I just fell. I answered with my head shook. It was intended to hide my blue bruise on the ice with my hair. Hey, look at me. Were you beaten up? No, like I just said, I fell. I told you to raise your head. I wanted to go up to my room and rest for today. but he had to block me from doing that and pulled my hair up. You, what's up with that bruise? Which bastard did this? Who in the hell? Why, my messed up face was revealed by the brat's hand. It's nothing. Oh, this is nothing. How is this no? It's really nothing. Seriously, it's nothing. I told you it's nothing. I think I was out of my mind because I shouted at him and also shook his hand off me without my wills. Even my stepdad and the oldest stepbrother widened their eyes. It was probably because they've never seen me angry for me to act like this. Like so. That moment, I thought I couldn't get more miserable than this. The fact that they were having a nice time eating fruits while I was being beaten up in the gym storage room. Since when did you care for me? That view of the three having a family time in the living room when I walked in through the door made me envious, jealous. And me who couldn't join them was, please just leave me alone. Did I ever ask for you to do something for me before? I didn't even do anything, but why? Why are you guys keep silence filled the living room that could make one have goosebumps. I always thought that crying meant loss and failure, but I couldn't stop myself that moment. All the tears I held back up until now flooded out my eyes like a waterfall. I cried like a little kid, not knowing what kind of face they made while watching me. A few days later, by the time the bruise on my eyes disappeared, the second bastard came to me and spoke. I caught them all and beat them up until they're half dead. Those were the words he spoke without even saying hi. I already sort of knew from the rumors saying that some of the troublesome kids were hospitalized all at once. Just how much did those bastards look down on you to do that? He muttered, looking at me, who shook my head. Anyways, those things wouldn't happen again, just so you know. Even though I wasn't thankful to the second bastard at all, I became even more isolated in school. Nothing got better. In fact, they bullied me more sometimes. Thank you, brother. I wanted to scream that it was his fault instead of forcing those thanking words to him. Why do I need to thank you when you're cleaning up your own mess? I just really, is what you said it was. But why isn't she waking? Loud shouts were heard, but I couldn't figure who and what they were saying. My head hurt. I opened my eyes that wouldn't easily open. At least do that. Obviously, you, along with with that insane bastard, the crown prince. So loud, someone immediately came to me as I squeezed my voice out. Hey, are you awake? Everything was blurry. I couldn't see the person's face too well, but I could immediately tell who it was, thanks to that familiar voice. It was the second bastard from the house. I hate you. I forced my voice out into saying the words I couldn't before. Really, I hate you so much. I hate you 100, 1,000 times more than you hate me. Speechless, I hate you more than anyone in the world. I closed my eyes, finishing my words, feeling a little refreshed. And I wasn't able to see because I was falling back asleep, the blue eyes trembling like it would during an earthquake, and the pink-haired person as stiff as one can be. Hey, and just in case you guys are confused, he is Reynold, but Penelope mistook him as her second older brother from the house before she fell back asleep. End of chapter 15.